From the East Texas Sports Network studios, powered by Texas Dairy Queen, a tradition of excellence, the ETSN podcast, where Clint Buckley and Mike Graham offer their, well, they just talk. But who really cares? It's what they do best. It's the lowdown on everything high school football in East Texas. And now, Clint Buckley and Mike Graham.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Week 9 edition of the ETSN.fm podcast. I'm Clint Buckley, and I'm joined as always by Mike Graham. How's it going, Mike?
Doing good. Here we are. I mean, this is a huge weekend for quite a few teams, so I'm excited to get this thing going.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. We got 3 more weeks for these teams to either put up or shut up. Speaking of putting up, did you see the amount of points that Jacksonville and Nacogdoches put up last week? 5 overtimes, 85-79, Jacksonville. Huge win for the Indians. They came in 0-3 in district. Not a whole lot of folks gave them a shot to beat Nacogdoches, and they're able to get it done. So that was a huge performance for Jacksonville, and they got a big one this week now. It becomes big. They play White House, a team with a similar district record. They're both 1-3. It's on the road, and even in years past where White House has had the quote-unquote better team, these games have always been competitive. I remember a few years ago the game went into overtime. I think Mahomes' junior year when White House was on quite a roll. They ended up winning the game, but it had to go to overtime. And all of a sudden this game has huge implications in 16-5A. The winner is suddenly back into playoff contention at 2-3.
No doubt. There's a 3-way tie for 6th place in the league right now, and there are ties in the 3rd place section. So whoever gets this game could, if everything fell perfectly, they could be in a 5-way tie for 3rd place by the end of the night, and then after that, kind of control their own destiny. Especially White House, who has a head-to-head game with Nacogdoches, and
they've already played Ennis, Lufkin, and John Tyler.
Yes. So I think that's a playoff caliber game coming up for White House should they beat Jacksonville. But Jacksonville, we know this, they're a way better team than they were a year ago.
Yeah, I remember saying, early in the season during non-district, I said, they're going to beat one of the teams they're not quote-unquote supposed to beat during district. I just thought that the way they had played in non-district, getting off to the 3-0 start, the semi-competitive game against Ennis in the district opener, a lot of people were expecting Ennis to kind of roll over Jacksonville, and it wasn't the case. I kind of thought that Jacksonville had a chance to jump up and bite one of these so-called favorites, and that's exactly what happened last week against Nacogdoches. I think that took both of us by surprise. And oddly enough, these two teams hooked up for a similar overtime game a few years ago. It was a lengthy overtime. I can't remember. I want to say 12 overtimes.
It was 12 overtimes in 2011, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. 2011, 12 overtimes. And this one didn't quite go that long, but it topped it for points, I believe, 85-79, because I think it was either topped it or points. It was really close.
I think it was one short.
One short? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
But, good news. People didn't have to stay awake till 2 in the morning and travel and all that. But the game ended in a really weird fashion. Nacogdoches thought they had gotten the game-tying score and then disputed the call when the ref waved them out of bounds, and they got a personal foul, and that set them back, and they couldn't get the yardage on 4th down, and that's how the game ended. Yeah,
usually games like that, there are some crazy kind of shenanigans that go on. I remember in the game 3 years ago between the two, there were playoff implications at stake for Nacogdoches, I believe. They had to win by a certain amount in order to get into the points system tiebreaker in order to get into the playoffs. So at one point, they kept letting Jacksonville score because they needed to win by 8. So they had to extend the game. They would let them score so they could score a touchdown, get the 2-point, and hopefully hold Jacksonville on that next possession in overtime. So a lot of crazy stuff went on in this game, just like in 3 years ago, and what a story that would be if Jacksonville somehow rises from the ashes from an 0-3 start and uses that game as a springboard to get into the playoffs. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, that'd be nice. There are a lot of good kids on that team, and they've had their fair share of injuries this season, too.
No doubt. And then White House, talk about them for a little bit. They make a switch at quarterback last week. They go with Nate Brooks, who you and I are both high on, just a tremendous football player. He's listed as a cornerback, and that's where he's going to North Texas as a cornerback, but man, he's one of those kids that I think if you put him anywhere on the field, he'll be successful.
Yeah, he's real tough, and I've never seen him as a quarterback, and I have no idea what he looks like in person, but I'd be excited if you go to that game because Nate Brooks is a very special player.
Yeah, I mean, he did it both on the ground and through the air last week. I believe he threw for over 200 yards, had a pretty good completion percentage rate, and then also ran for over 100 yards. So, Nate Brooks brings an added dimension to that offense. And from what I've told, I haven't seen him throw either. From what I'm told, he's got a pretty good arm. I mean, he can chunk the rock deep, and maybe that's something that Whitehouse has been lacking, is someone that can go deep with the football and provide some moves in the pocket and out of pocket, some escapability that they've been lacking. So who knows? That could be a story in itself if Whitehouse is able to come back and resurface from an 0-3 start to get into the playoffs. Would be the decision to make the switch at quarterback.
Yeah, and another thing, I mean, just Jacksonville, the favor they did against Nacogdoches.
Yeah, that helps.
Here we go.
That helps Whitehouse
controls its own destiny if it beats Jacksonville. So right now, it totally controls its own destiny into the playoffs.
Yep. So that ought to be fun. Jacksonville and Whitehouse. Another big game in that district. 16-5A is Ennis and Lufkin. Now Ennis has proven that they should have been what we all thought they were at the beginning of the year, which is district favorites. They protect home field last week. They beat John Tyler 30-27, last second field goal to win the game. I was at it. I was really impressed with Ennis. They're very fundamentally sound on defense. They stay in their rush lanes. They're very disciplined on defense, and they don't turn the ball over on offense. They're just a really efficient team all the way around. I wouldn't say that they necessarily have more athletes than, say, a John Tyler team does, but they have just enough, and they surround those impact players with very smart football players, and that's one of the reasons why they're leading this district right now. That being said, I think Lufkin's capable of pulling off an upset. They're at home on Friday.
No doubt. And all Ennis does is win. They're a very good team, and they've handled the East Texas opponents they've seen so far. But Lufkin can throw them some different challenges.
Yeah, I mean,
Trey Cumbie is a quarterback we're really high on.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Saul is one of the best running backs, I think, in all of East Texas. His numbers don't quite put him above 1,000 yards yet. I think he's got 970
He'll get there
entering the week. But he is a very good running back. And then, with Terry Mark and Kiki Kuti, you've got an offense that can compete with that Ennis defense.
Yeah, I think the real key. Yeah, I think the real key in this game is going to be how well Lufkin plays the run, and that was a key last week for Ennis against John Tyler. They were able to kind of take control of the game somewhat in the second half, kind of keep it at their own pace with their ground game. I'm really impressed with their quarterback combo system. When you talk about Taylor Thompson and then Trey Elliott, two really good backs. And I was really impressed with how Ennis operates. It's funny, they're kind of an old school offense. I mean, they have a ton of formations, but they only run a few plays out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's very ground oriented. You don't see a whole lot of 3 wide receiver sets. You see a lot of tight ends. You see maybe one split out wide, and you see running backs catching the ball out of the backfield too. That's one thing that sets Ennis apart from some of these other ground oriented teams. Is when they throw it, they like to get their running backs involved in the screen game. And motioning them out of the backfield, pre-snap. So, I think Lufkin has a chance. I mean, you look, Lufkin had a chance to beat John Tyler on the road a couple of weeks ago. Led for most of that game. Was on the short end of a last-second field goal by John Tyler. We saw the way JT played Ennis last week. I think there's not a whole lot of separation between those three right there: Ennis, John Tyler, and Lufkin at this point in the season. And I was really impressed with how Lufkin responded last week against Lindale, because it's kind of a trap game, a game that you can see a letdown.
Uh-huh.
You play a John Tyler team that you get so amped up for. The end result doesn't go your way. You got to turn around and play a Lindale team that you figure you should beat. You have better players. I mean, your team's overall is more accomplished than theirs is, and it's on the road. So there was some room for some, I wouldn't say an upset, but Lufkin could have come into that game and played sloppy, and then they didn't. They came out and took care of business, 63-28. So I was really impressed with how Lufkin responded from the week before. One
more note on that game, just kind of. When you go to Ennis, it's a different environment. It's a little spooky, and they play a lot of classic rock, and they've got videos, and things to hype up the crowd. I don't think Lufkin's lost at home this season. And
Lufkin's great at home. It should be a good atmosphere. One thing that impresses me about Lufkin is their home fans are great. I mean, they fill up their side. They have fans sitting on the visiting side to make for an uncomfortable situation for visiting teams. So it should be fun. And I wouldn't count out the Panthers this week. And if they can get a win, that makes a statement, and that kind of throws the 16-5A race kind of into some disarray a little bit. So that ought to be fun. Again, 7:30 from Abe Martin Stadium in Lufkin, Ennis at Lufkin. Now on to a game that you'll be doing. You're going to be heading into that region. I believe it's the same county, Angelina County. You're going to be covering Newton at Corrigan Camden. This ought to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this game. I've wanted to see these two teams for a long time. I think they're very similar. Newton, kind of a running back by committee offense and huge productive numbers. And then Corrigan Camden, what can you say about them? They've got two rushers over 1,000 yards already in Keegan Mitchell and Malik Johnson. So
yeah, they're just laying waste to teams.
Yeah, and Newton's definitely going to be their toughest test. I mean, I expect a playoff atmosphere. I think that these two teams can go very far, and I'm just excited to get down to that part of East Texas for the first time for a football game.
Yeah, I mean, these were the two teams that we figured were going to be the district favorites going into the season from 11-3 AD2. Newton, a one-loss team from a season ago. Corrigan Camden, the same. Just a really good 3A programs down in that region of East Texas, and it should be a lot of fun. The one thing I will say about Newton is they got off to a rough start. They lost their season opener to Tatum by 32 points. They lost another couple of games, but ever since then they've been kind of coming on strong lately. And I think if you're head coach W.T. Johnston, you are happy with the way that the team has responded after the unexpected slow start, because you look at the players that had coming back with Kalen Foster and Ronnie Elam, and you expected a little bit better than what you got the first few weeks of the season. But Newton's coming around, and I think Corrigan Camden may finally get a game this week. They've been blowing teams out. They're probably averaging 40-point margin of victory each week. I mean, they're right at 60 points a game, maybe a little bit over that.
So just mowing people over. So
it'd be interesting to see if they finally get a game this week.
And now it's the ETSN Dairy Queen Game of the Week.
All right, time for our Game of the Week, and we're gonna stick with the small schools. We're gonna stick in Class 3A, and there's probably not a better 3A game in all of the state of Texas than what we got going on in Malakoff Friday night. 6th-ranked Teague at 7th-ranked Malakoff. Two undefeated teams. This will decide the District 11 3A Division I championship. A lot of points, a lot of playmakers. It should be a blast to cover. I'll be there. It's my first trip to. It's not my first trip to Malakoff, but it is my first game to cover there, and that ought to be interesting because I did some research on their press facilities, and I made some inquiries earlier in the week, and I believe I'm going to be outdoors, off to the side. And I've been told I need to bring an extension cord. So I will bring an extension cord, and hopefully I will have a chair and maybe a table to set my laptop and all my stat-keeping utensils for the game, because and hopefully the weather works out.
I heard you got a good photographer, too.
Yeah. Some guy you probably are familiar with. I think his name is Rob Graham. For those of you who don't know, if you've been noticing our photos on our website with the photo credit Rob Graham, that is Mike Graham's father, who is I'm not ashamed to say it. He's really added a lot to our website with his photos. He's done a great job. So we're looking forward to his photography from this game. Man, these two teams can put up points. We start off with Teague. They're averaging 60 points per game, and just the offensive numbers. I mean, they're averaging 580 yards a game. They're very balanced, although they make a lot of headway in their passing game. They have a tremendous quarterback named Austin Skinner, who's already up over 2,100 yards passing, 30 touchdown passes already, just 3 interceptions. They have a 1,200-yard rusher in John Love. They have 3 receivers that all have at least 9 touchdown catches. They are, without a doubt, the strongest opponent Malakoff will have played up to this point. And now turning it on to Malakoff, I think They have the pieces, I think, to not only make this a game, but maybe pull off the slight upset. I would think that Teague would be the favorite just based on the scores that they've been putting up on teams, and they're a little bit more experienced to have a lot more players coming back than Malakoff does. But what Malakoff does have is Marcus Dow, and he has been a big reason for Malakoff's success this year. He's up over 800 yards rushing. He's already got 21 rushing touchdowns on the season. Had a big game a couple of weeks ago. He was our offensive player of the week. I think he had over 200 yards and 5 touchdowns and only like 17 carries.
Yeah.
So I think Teague's going to get a steady dose of Marcus Dow, because I think if Malakoff wants to have its best chance to win, they're going to have to try to keep the game from becoming a shootout.
Right, set the offensive tempo.
And to do that, I think they need to feed Marcus Dow. And the thing about it is that Malakoff has been in so few close games themselves that Dow's numbers aren't as good as what they probably would be if he played on a different team, and there were some different circumstances, because I think he's only averaging maybe 13 carries and 117 yards a game, but that's really because he probably doesn't play very much in the second half of these games that Malakoff is just wearing on opponents. So this ought to be fun. Teague and Malakoff, I'm looking forward to it. I thought this had the potential to be a big game before the year, because I looked at the district and I said that these two were clearly the two best teams moving forward into this district, and it's going to be fun. But I think the key is going to be how much time of possession plays into the game, and if Marcus Dow and Malakoff's offense can control the tempo. All right, time to salute our offensive and defensive players of the week. First off, on offense, congratulations to Sulphur Springs senior quarterback Larry Pryor. He won this award a couple of times last week, and he had a big year last year at quarterback, his first year at that position after playing safety pretty much exclusively as a sophomore. And he's continuing to put up big numbers as a senior. The Texas A&M commit as a safety had 23 carries for 232 yards and 4 touchdowns. Those are all season highs for Pryor. And he also completed 9 of 12 for 137 yards and a huge win over Hallsville, 49-42, that kind of put Sulphur Springs still in position to kind of control their own destiny in that district. They haven't played Longview yet. They're 3-1 in district. Longview's 4-0. I believe they play next week. So if Sulphur Springs is able to get a win this week, which I believe they will, I can't remember who they're playing. I think they might be playing Greenville. If they come out of there with a win, they'll be 4-1, and we expect Longview to win their game too. So they'll be 5-0. That'll be a big game next week. So congratulations to Larry Pryor on his big game.
Yeah, maybe A&M will want to look at him at quarterback.
Maybe. I think he could play quarterback. Maybe not in the SEC, but he could play quarterback certainly in college football. So congratulations to Larry Pryor, our offensive player of the week.
The ETSN.fm and Dairy Queen defensive player of the week is junior linebacker Jacob Smith from Pleasant Grove. And Jacob, he had 2 late interceptions with Spring Hill driving for a tie. He picked them off to set up a score. They kicked the ball off, and on the very next play, picks them off again to seal the game. And that was a big game for Pleasant Grove. They really needed that one to stay in contention for the playoffs. And Jacob, congratulations on being named Player of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick note on Pleasant Grove. I mean, how about them? 5-2 this year. 1-1 in district. They got a big one over Spring Hill. They are right in the thick of that playoff race in District 6 4AD2. So once again, congratulations to our offensive and defensive players of the week, Larry Pryor from Sulphur Springs and Jacob Smith from Pleasant Grove. That's going to about wrap this thing up for this week on the ETSN.fm podcast. Before you head out to your games on Friday night, be sure to check our weekly stat leaders that are now updated online on our site. Also, as the playoffs get closer, you want to see how your team is stacking up in their district. We got standings available for all of our districts. We also have a few previews up for this week's games online, so check that out as well. If you have any questions or comments for either me or Mike, you can connect with us on Twitter. My handle is @ClintBuckley.
And I'm @Mike_ETSN.
That's right. So until we talk again next week, y'all have a great weekend and enjoy the Friday Night Lights.